אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה. וערבנה אדוני אלוהינו דברי תורתך בפינו ובפיך בית ישראל. ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאיך בית ישראל. כולנו יודע שמך ולומדי תורתך לשמה, ברוך אתה אדוני מלמד תורה לעמו ישראל.
אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בך בנו מכל עמים ונתן לנו תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Amen.
Okie dokie, Kevin, teach us.
Okay, I've got two very, very nice things here which I found. I mean, I had the markings, but I had to go through it. Okay. So the first one is giving people the benefit of the doubt. Kabb, as they say in Hebrew. It is, if at all feasible, you should give people the benefit of the doubt. If you relate an incident not giving the benefit of the doubt to circumstances which obligate you to do so, you would be guilty of speaking Lashon Hara and of failing to perform the commandment, B'tzedek tishpot amisecha, judge your neighbor with righteousness. Okay, then there's a sub category to this regarding a pious, God-fearing person. We are always obligated to give a pious, God-fearing person the benefit of the doubt. This is true not only when the chances of zechut, favorable judgment, and chov, unfavorable judgment, seem equal, but even when it appears most likely that his action was improper. Okay, let me give a story here. Mr. Krauss, a very pious man, has told you that he presently cannot afford to redeem the money he owes you, but you notice that he has a large amount of cash in his wallet. You are obligated to assume that the money you see is either not his own, or if it is his own, that he needs it for an important purpose. To tell others Mr. Krauss doesn't repay his debts, even though he has the money to do so, would be a violation of B'tzedek tishpot amisecha. You would also be guilty of speaking Lashon Hara. Rabbi Ploni honored a certain person in your opinion, non-deservedly. If it is possible that Rabbi Ploni felt the man was deserving of honor, since he had virtues which are not known to many people. Okay, if you assume that Rabbi Ploni was motivated by selfish motives, he wanted honor from this man in return, and you tell others Rabbi Ploni seeks honor, you are guilty of not giving him the benefit of the doubt and of speaking Lashon Hara. Okay, then just another one. Can I continue?
Yeah.
Is that okay that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, now the next one is, part two, an average mitzvah observer. The rules concerning giving benefit of the doubt to an average person are as follows. If the probability of zchus and chov seem equal, you're obligated to give the person the benefit of the It is proper to have the matter undecided in your mind. According to the letter of the law, however, you are not permitted to assume the side of chov. Even when the side of chov appears most likely, it is meritorious for you to give the person the benefit of the doubt. Keep in mind what our sages have said. This is in Shabbos 127b. Whoever gives others the benefit of the doubt, Hashem will deal likewise with him. Very importantly, okay, there's a story here. David, an average mitzvah observer, has told you that he cannot presently repay his debt. Since you can't discern any indications to the contrary, you're obligated to assume that he is telling the truth. If you see that David has money and his excuse for not paying does not seem plausible to you, the matter should remain undecided in your mind. It is commendable in such instances to think that David is truly not able to pay on time. Okay, then there's just another little story here. I think that's it. I don't have to go do this. Is that okay? There's another story here. Should I continue?
Yeah.
Yeah, do one more, and then we'll stop.
Okay. The Talmud in Shabbos 127b relates an incident from which we gain some insight into the extent of our obligation to grant the benefit of the doubt. a man from the upper Galil hired himself out to someone in the south of the country for 3 years. Before Yom Kippur, he said to his employer, give me my wages so that I can go home and feed my wife and children. The employer said, I have no money. So the man says, then give me fruit. The employer says, I have none. Give me property. I don't have any. Give me livestock. I haven't any. Give me pillows and blankets. I don't have any of those either. The man slung along his belongings over his shoulder and went home bitterly disappointed. After Sukkot, the employer brought the wages plus 3 donkeys loaded with food, drink, and delicacies to the home of his employee. After they had eaten and the salary was paid, the employer added, when you asked me for the money and I said that I didn't have, what did you suspect? So the employee says, I thought that you might have spent your money on a bargain that had just presented itself. When I told you that I had no livestock, what were your thoughts? I thought that you might have lent them to others. And when I said I didn't have any property, maybe it was leased to others. And when I said that I didn't have any fruit, what did you think? Perhaps you hadn't separated the Mesa yet. What did you think I said when I didn't have any pillows and blankets? I thought that you might have dedicated all of your possessions to the Beis Hamikdash. I make an oath that is exactly what happened. Just as you have judged me favorably, so too should Hashem judge you favorably. Jeez, that's a high level, eh?
Wow.
Sure. No, it is. It is a high level. So please God, Kevin, may we all judge people favorably.
Amen, we must, yeah.
And
the average mitzvah observer, I mean, you get people that are very arrogant, and Damon, I'm sure you've come across this, and all of us, that people think they're better than us because they know more, and they're very arrogant, and which is also wrong. I thought it was going to say that. It didn't actually mention that. The average mitzvah, I'm saying people have less knowledge than others. Maybe that's, but it doesn't matter. As long as some people are trying their best. No one's wasn't be much cleverer people than us.
It all comes from arrogance. Sometimes it's misguided love.
Okay.
What I mean, I just want to end on this note before we send the link. Is that sometimes our definition of what's bad gets a little bit more extreme the more religious a person becomes. So what happens is if you care about somebody, and somebody has to be mainlining heroin in the secular world for you to have an intervention. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas in the frum world, if you swear a bit or you're a little bit rough around the edges, they have an intervention on a minor thing because they think your soul is being damned to hell and they're worried about you. So it's kind of misguided love in the sense that kind of why it's not for them to tell you how to live your life. It really isn't. But by the same token, they're doing it out of concern and worry. So the intention always isn't always judgmental as a result of saying, I'm holding it a better level than you. It's just they're looking at everybody else. I mean, you remember that story in the cave with the rabbi? I forget him and his son.
Shimon Bar Yochai.
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Oh, so this is a story.
And the birds flying overhead. Yeah.
They had to escape from the Romans because they had to escape a father and a son, and they basically lived for many years. I think it was 7 years. On the fruits of a carob tree because the Romans wanted to kill them, and they were on the level where they were involved with writing many of the Kabbalistic works we've got today on a level like you can't believe. But the thing of it is, when they come out of the cave, the father looked at somebody planting in agriculture, and he looked at him funny, and he died. And as he was judging people, these people ended up getting physically hurt from his judgments. And Hashem turned around to Rabbi, what was it, Shimon Bar Yochai.
Yeah.
And he said to him, have you come to my world to destroy it? I've built it. Go back in the cave and learn some more. And the father and the son had to go back and learn. And they had to realize that not everybody is going to be dedicating the entire physical world just for the spiritual. They're people that are involved with industrious behavior like farming and business and other aspects of the world. And why do we learn like this particular thing in history? It's because many people today that are super fun, they look at a person that watches a mini series or a movie or goes to gym or whatever, and they think, what are you doing? I mean, there was one rabbi that disparaging referred to going to gym as trying to look like a gorilla. I found that a little bit condescending and rude. I found
But
rude.
Damon, can I just add two things?
Yeah.
You missed the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai when they went out the cave, and when they looked up the sky and they saw birds, and they looked at the birds, and the birds burnt to a cinder. They burst into flames, birds flying over. That was also part of the thing.
No,
And
that was.
secondly, I had an incident. Can I just relate one quick story?
Yeah.
I went to this Damon's good friend Graham Godfrey and does Arthur know Graham?
No, Arthur doesn't.
So Graham is a good mate of mine. He's also into rock music and heavy metal and rock and punk. So we've been to a couple of concerts. And 2013, there was this band called Kings of Chaos. The guys from Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith and amazing, like a super band. They came and they played at Sun City. So I said on a week before, I said, I'll come to early mincha so I can go to the concert. So Oak overheard me because I try to go to show whenever I can. Because I want to do, I said, I can score a minion and I can go. So he said, the certain individual who I've known for many, I was very taken aback. He says to me, no, Hashem doesn't like what you're doing. He said, it's so important to go to this concert. And I didn't even answer. I was so shocked by what he said. I thought, who the hell are you? As you just said. I went when I saw, when I saw the Alice Cooper concert in Ranana. I stayed with my friend Simeon. I went to Mincha Mara before, had a share, then I went to the concert. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Oak said that to me, and I said, who the hell, I mean, how can you say that, talk nice, and in front of other people, he said it to me.
No, that's wrong. No, that's
he knows, I was at school with the Oak.
That's hectic. So all I'm saying is, look, most people would have a common sense to tell you in private, but the problem is that I don't know. Something happens when somebody becomes very frum, that they're well-meaning, they really love a person and they want them not to sin, but it's not their business to tell another person what to do. But it's not coming out of malice or even judgmental. Like, when these religious Christian people come up to you and say they want to save your soul because they genuinely believe you're going to go to hell. They genuinely
damnation, yes.
I remember going down to KwaZulu-Natal, and this one of the guys that bought a franchise, his mother said to me, she says to me, I need you to go and accept JC Penny as your Lord and Savior. I said, listen, I'm on my way back to Joburg. We've had this conversation. You asked me if I found JC, and I said I didn't know he was lost, and we've had this conversation. She says to me, no. She says, on a serious note, I'm worried. She says, I'm so fond of you, and I really don't want you to end up in hell. She said, you're one of the people I really like. She said, it was just true. I would find it very difficult to imagine such a thing for you, because she says, I actually like you. She said, I don't want this for you. She genuinely believed I was going to go to
from
hell.
a good place.
I might go to hell for for other things I've done. I'm not saying that. But the thing of it is, this particular thing, she was so worried because she was fond of me. Now, if she didn't care about me, she wouldn't care where I'd go. How do I know? I've got some taxis that cunt in front of me that they can roast and get them for 100 years. I would care less. So the thing of it is, it came from what you call misguided love. And then you got to say, and you got to look at the person and say, look, they do care about me. They care about me.
They're good people. They are good people. I know. The guys are good.
Not your case, because in your case, they embarrassed you in front of other people. That wasn't cool. That really wasn't cool.
So, but basically, it's like parents. Parents always have misguided love. They always mean well. The kids never listen.
Arthur, I do want to do the share dedicated for your health. I hope you make a good refuah, my friend. Really.
Amen.
I'm very happy that you're here. I'm very happy that you're well, and just continue to be well. Really.
Thank you, Max. Well, it's
all right.
A miracle, but anyway.
It is a miracle.
No, that's okay.
Now we're discussing now we're discussing a little more of a hectic case. What we ended up yesterday, which I found a little bit difficult to understand, we discussed the dispute between Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and the rabbis. Why did I find it difficult to understand? Is because the rabbis say, which made more sense to me in this case, that irrespective of a person's intention, if you injured your slave where you knocked out his tooth or you took out his eye, you have to basically set him free because you had bodily injury. Now, the first two cases, we had a case where there was a guy sleeping, for example, and somebody put a rock in his lap, and he gets up on the third floor of a building, and that rock comes down, and it takes out his slave's eye, or his slave's tooth, because he's working on the garden below. And the second case, he had a coffee mug. He's more aware because he fell asleep or he forgot that coffee mug was on his lap. So he's much more culpable than if he wasn't even aware that that was on his lap. And then when he got up, it wasn't purposeful at all. But coffee mug came out and injured his slave in the way that the Gemara and the Chumash prescribes that his slave goes free because he did injure the eye or the tooth or gave severe bodily harm. And in that case, the slave goes free. That's the rabbinical opinion. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said it has to be intent. And in the first case, where a person wasn't even aware that there was a stone on their lap because somebody placed it there after they fell asleep, for example, he was saying it's equivalent to almost as innocuous as a slave saying to his master. It was quoting a separate brisa here. And the slave says to the master, listen, I know you're a doctor or a dentist. I'd like you to sort out my tooth or my eye. And in that process, he blinds him or damages the tooth, at which Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says he toys with his master, meaning he has the pretext of doing it in order to be set free. Because the intention there was clearly medical and wanting to heal. Obviously, a rock dropping off somebody's lap is not as innocuous as actually actively trying to help them. It's not as beneficial, but it's certainly harmless. Now, the second case, when he should have been aware of his mug, okay, he was negligent, but no harm done. In this case, I have a very difficult understanding of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. I'm sure he has his reasons, but I don't see how anybody that is culpable of not being allowed to even go to the city of exile, according to Rashi's one opinion, because it's so heinous that he actually killed somebody by aiming in his direction. And even he's not even allowed the opportunity of kapora in that case because he aimed in that person's direction and he overshot his mark. How it could be that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says his intention wasn't sufficient enough to release the slave. It doesn't make sense to me. So the only reason it doesn't make sense to me is because maybe there are deeper insights into why he holds that position of intent. And maybe he's saying, listen, it was reckless, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like he punched him. In other words, in the biblical verse in Shmot, where he says, two men get into a quarrel. You saw that verse. So there they physically want intent to hurt each other. So here this guy was reckless, but his intention wasn't to hurt the slave. It doesn't make sense to me. What are you doing throwing a stone in a person's direction? So I'm not saying Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is wrong. I'm saying I don't understand it. That's all I'm saying. Now we're dealing with the case of bigger culpability, and that bigger culpability has one major difference. And that major difference is in Shabbos. We found that the other case is very similar. Why? If he intended to throw a stone 4 amos, but he in fact threw it 8 amos, then because before he intended to throw 2 amos and he threw it 4. In this last case, he intends to throw it 4 amos, but he threw it 8. In regard to damages, he is liable. In regard to the 4 other things, he's not liable. Fine. So that case mimics this case. Now, the only case it changes is in regards to the laws of Shabbat. It depends. It says where he says let it land wherever it pleases, yes, he is in that case liable. But if he does not make that declaration, he is not liable. Okay, I'm just going to explain to you what that means. So since he doesn't care where it lands, its eventual landing in any place can be considered a fulfillment of his intention. Why? Because he did intend to perform the malacha of throwing it at least 4 amos in the public domain. You're not allowed to throw something at least 4 amos. So no matter where it lands, it doesn't matter. If you throw it 4 amos, you're transgressing Shabbos. So whether he threw it 8 amos or 4 amos, he's still in transgression. So what actually happened is not qualitatively different from what he intended. So whether he threw it 4 or 8, it's the same. So in the previous case, it's different. He intended to only throw 2 amos. So he's not liable, even if he said, this is where I wanted to land. In other words, the aiming is irrelevant. Because although it landed 4 amos away, that wasn't his intention. He overshot. His primary intent was to do something that was not a malacha transgression, since his intention was to throw it less than 4 amos. So, okay, what actually happened is qualitatively differently from what he intended, and he's not liable. Okay, so that's a little bit different to a case of the story of exile, where the main issue there is not the distance, but the direction you're aiming in. Okay, the other two cases don't change. In regard to exile, the Torah states the one who did not aim, which excludes one who intends to throw the stone a distance of 4 amos, in fact, through it 8 amos. Okay, so which is saying, according to exactly the same opinions on 2 verses 4, and here's 4 verses 8. 2 opinions of Rashi. The one opinion of Rashi is, the literal translation is, one who did not aim excludes one who intended to throw the distance from 4 amos to 8 amos from exile. Why does it excluding? Because in this case, he did aim. He did aim. Does that make sense? So, so on the one hand, he actually doesn't deserve kapora because he aimed in the direction of his victim, and that is more than grossly irresponsible. It's absolutely reckless. In the other side of the verse, it's saying he doesn't get to go to the city of refuge. And in that particular case,
Thank you, Arthur.
So if the guy who threw the stone 4 amos intended to throw 2 amos, it's his word against another's word. How do you prove his intention was 2 amos? You're not
because the guy's
4.
dead.
Sorry?
Because the guy's dead.
Oh, the guy that he threw the stone at. I'm talking. Okay.
No, but one could be deliberate.
But what was his intention? Wasn't to throw it 4 amos.
Okay,
It just happened by accident.
It's funny that.
Let me just clear up this issue. Let me just clear up this
Prove
issue.
intention. Prove
No,
intention.
I can. Just give me a second. Okay. So we've got only 2 possible options. There's a body and a stone and a person looking very confused and guilty. That being the case,
Okay.
there's only 2 options. The death penalty, exile to the city of refuge, or neither. Those are your 3 options. I don't know where Arthur's gone. So Arthur's probably laughing. I don't know. So it's fun. Laugh with us. It's fun. Arthur, take it off mute. We could do with the laugh. Arthur, you can laugh with us. Don't know the person.
That just the way you phrased it. Now he knows he's dead.
Okay. So
it's the death penalty we're talking about. So the word death came into it.
You know, suddenly you've got one corpse, one person that's starting to whistle, pretending he doesn't have a stone in his hand, a guy with half a head missing from a rock that got displaced in it, and some people are running towards to find out what actually the trauma was. So there are 3 possible outcomes.
Okay.
Death penalty, which can't happen. Why? Because the death penalty requires certain things. One of them is hasroa, a forewarning. So there's a discussion in Sanhedrin that you have to warn somebody not only not to do the act, but that the fact the act does contain the death penalty. You have to warn them that the act contains the death penalty. There are some opinions that state that you actually have to add what death penalty that act actually brings.
Yes.
Now that's the problem that I had with that particular argument, because if the person isn't a Talmud Chochem, you just commit a murder amongst fools and you get off. That was part of Ian and Gavin's book.
No, but you had a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right. You can say, no, you're going to get...
No. But Gavin, what I'm saying is if you commit murder, in that case, if it's required that you warn the person about the specific death penalty, all you have to do is commit the homicide around fools that wouldn't know which death penalty is required.
100%. It's part of our book. It's absolutely
Part of your book.
Hasn't been published. It's still raw. Yeah.
So the reality is, according to the opinion, let's go with the more lenient opinion that just saying, don't do this. If you do that, you're liable for the death penalty. That is hasra. It's forewarning. Okay? And you need 2 witnesses, and I'm sure you need those 2 witnesses to have actually warned the person. So here, where he picks up the stone and he chucks it, sometimes these things happen so quickly that you don't think it's going to transpire. So if the person was warned and he said, he has to state, I'm going to do it anyway, well, he's got to acknowledge it. Okay, that's the one opinion. And the other opinion, he doesn't. But if he's heard it and he understood it, because it's meant to stop somebody in an act of rage or in an act of an emotional state so that they stop and think and are cognizant. So the thing of it is, Kevin, if those criteria haven't been fulfilled, you don't get the actual death penalty. Are you with me? And you've got to go on trial, and it's got to fit a whole lot of criteria. There's got to be witnesses explaining, exactly what the guy was wearing. It's a very complicated process, what they've seen, what they haven't. So it's very unlikely to get the death penalty. So that's out of the way unless they warned him. And if they warned him, clearly he deserves the death penalty. They said, if you kill this guy. So then you're left with 2 options, to be exiled or not to be exiled. Now, if you exiled, it's because you've done a murder of a lapse of awareness, meaning that, Kevin, say I knew the brakes of my car weren't working and I forgot to take it to the mechanic, and somebody, I said, Joe, you can borrow my car, and they got mangled around Genesis Shopping Center. Okay? In that particular case, I would be negligent because I was aware that the brakes weren't working. I might have had a lapse of awareness. That is a perfect example of the city of refuge, because the person died as a result of the person's negligence. Or an axe handle that flies off because you're busy chopping wood, in a case where you haven't checked your equipment and there are people nearby. Okay, so that's an act of negligence. In this particular case, Rashi quotes 2 different viewpoints. The one viewpoint is as follows. In regard to exile, the Torah states one who did not aim, which excludes one who intended to throw a stone of 4 amos and in fact threw it 8 amos. Okay, so there, it seems to exclude a person from exile. Why? Because in this case, Kevin, he did aim. He did aim. So what are you doing aiming with something that could have a trajectory of killing somebody? We learned about David and Goliath. So the thing of it is, if you didn't aim, you would be liable to the city of refuge. But if you did aim, even if you shot short, you overextended your mark, what are you doing throwing in that direction?
It's negligent behavior. It's still foolish behavior.
Reckless. So according to the opinion that says you shouldn't go to the city of refuge or the city of exile, it's because that a person that aims is deemed by the Gemara of a near intentional killer, according to Rashi's opinion, because it was that degree of recklessness. I'm just closing. So Kapora is too good for the guy. The guy was nearly an intentional killer, according to Rashi. According to that one opinion of Rashi, and therefore he doesn't deserve the ability to be punished in this world, and he's got a lot of problems for him waiting in the next world.
So there has to be somebody that objects. There has to be somebody.
Pardon, Gav?
There has to be a commentator that's going to object to this, because I object. I don't think it. I think it still wasn't intentional. Doesn't matter. He was facing that direction. He had no intention. He should be given an opportunity of going. He was a little bit more reckless, a little bit more, but I think it's warranted that he can get a kapora thing. I mean, I think it's unfair.
Okay, so that Rashi quoting that other opinion would make you feel okay with that, because Rashi does quote an opinion that said, according to some other sources, you are, you are allowed to get the city of refuge because you still overthrew your mock. Okay, so let me just read the two notes, all right? That I've got, the additional notes in Rashi and Tosfot. The verse, and one who did not aim, comes to exclude such a case from the capital penalty stated in Shemot chapter 21, verse 14, for a deliberate murderer. Rather, the one who overthrew his mark is liable to the exile prescribed in the passage for the unintentional killer. So that's Rashi's first explanation in Makot 7b, and that would go according to Gavin. In other words, he was reckless, but he wouldn't have intended to kill him. There was no malice. Okay, so Gavin, you have got good company there. Alternatively, the verse is interpreted to mean that exiles prescribed for one who did not aim the stone in the victim's direction, which excludes from exile the one who did aim the stone in the victim's direction, but meant it to fall short of him. That's Rashi's second explanation. He said, because such a person did not deserve the atonement afforded by exile, since his reckless actions made him a near intentional killer. That's according to Rabbeinu Chananel in the Perush Haravad. Okay, they do not make him liable for the four things in the case of injury, because it wasn't a conflict where two men were fighting and the intention on purpose was to beat each other half to death. Others explain, on the contrary, that his actions are closer to an unavoidable mishap, and he need not have the atonement of exile at all. So there's even a more lenient opinion than what Gavin says. So there are the 3 degrees of opinions, Gav, and you've got good company.
Well, I tell you why I have a problem. I tell you why I suggest that, because this guy now has killed somebody, and he's going to be on the run. He's got nowhere to go, because all the in-laws and the family of that guy that he's just killed, let's presume it's a killing. He threw the stone 8 amos and it killed the guy, not damaged. They're going to come after him. Where's he going to run? He's going to have to go into exile in a foreign country or something.
I hear what you're saying. So you're saying the reason why he should be afforded exile is they'll kill him either way.
They'll kill him. This is to protect him. Yeah, absolutely. And to give him kapora. So those 2 reasons.
And a very
I think it's so unfair that he's not, just give me 1 second, Arthur, one second. I just think it's so unfair that he's not getting that opportunity of that kapora opportunity of going into exile. Sorry, all right, carry on.
Okay, no, and one thing Damon showed me as well, which I didn't realize, is that if it's done on Shabbos, you aren't allowed to throw more than 4 amos. And he threw 8.
Broke Shabbos.
Yeah.
As well.
And that's what yeah.
But he wasn't warned. He wasn't warned about that. So I think
whatever death penalty case of even Shabbos, if it's intentional, you'd have to be warned, etc. And it would follow the same thing as murder, capital case. Otherwise, everybody would be put to death. Nobody would be left to keep Shabbos. The vibe would be killed.
But next time you see somebody smoking in the street,
be killed
on Shabbos. If you see a guy smoking outside the shul on Shabbos, you need 2 of you to go up to him and tell him he's got the death penalty.
So Damon, and somebody who lives in Lisbon won't get a kapora if they do that.
Very funny. All right, guys, let's cover a little bit of ground. So with regards to this last case of 4 amos to 8 amos, it's the same with regards to the slave releasing him. Dispute between Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and the rabbis, and the exile is the same as the previous case, 2 verses 4, 4 verses 8. Gav, the only thing of it is that he might be killed by the family, but according to the more stringent opinion, if the family killed him, it's just going to be his kapora because the other person didn't have the courtesy of avoiding a stone being hurled in his direction either.
Yeah.
What do you mean to say that he didn't have the courtesy of? He did.
I'm saying. Well, sorry, he didn't. Courtesy is the wrong word. The guy didn't have the opportunity. If a stone was, if somebody picks up a brick and starts throwing it at you, and a person dies as a result of that, they weren't given the mercy of having a choice whether something was thrown at them or not. So if the family gets hold of him, you must know it's minashamayim.
But I also want to add something. You're right. I want to add something though. That guy, it's not like an ox is standing there and you're throwing it and the ox can't move. This guy's got dais that you're throwing it at. So why didn't you get out the way?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you a perfect reason why. If you've ever done martial arts, and which you have done boxing, I don't read thoughts. I don't know if the guy's a southpaw, if the punch is coming from the left side or the right. Otherwise, nobody'd ever get hit in boxing. If anybody had dais, how would you ever get hit in boxing? How? How would you ever be landed a shot, Gav?
Well, Mayweather has tremendous dais.
Yeah, it's got a no, but on a serious note, Gavin.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in a boxing ring, the very fact that somebody gets tonked at a certain point means that the dice isn't sufficient to predict the throw that the other person's going to have. And I'll give you one better than that. If I'm throwing a stone, I'm such a bad aimer that I don't even know where it's going to go, and I'm the one throwing it. I'm the dice. I should have the most dice. I'm the one releasing the stone, and I don't even know where it's going to go. How's the other person going to know where it's going to go?
Yeah, but you got no sense of direction, so we understand that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's go on with the Gemara, guys, because we need to cover ground quickly. And then another ruling of Rabbah, and Rabbah said, if one threw a utensil off the top of a roof, and someone else came and shattered the utensil in midair with the stick, he, the one who wielded the stick, is not liable to pay for the utensil. Don't answer this. You know this. What is the reason? Kevin, what's the reason?
You broke up there for 2 seconds, and you said you shattered the utensil. I didn't hear something before then. Yeah.
All right.
You froze before then. Just take 2 seconds back.
There's another ruling of Rabbah, and Rabbah said if one threw a utensil off the top of a roof and someone else came along and shattered the utensil in midair with the stick, the one who wielded the stick is not liable to pay for the utensil. What is the reason? We learned this in 17b.
Because the guy threw it off the roof, it's going to get damaged. He's negligent to throw it off the roof. We're thinking it's not going to get damaged. I mean, so the guy was protecting himself, clapping the stick. You got to, because it's going to hurt something.
No. All right, I'll tell you something. I'm in Arthur's apartment in Renana on the 3rd or 4th floor, wherever it is, and I take something off the 3rd or 4th floor and I push it down. Now that thing is hurtling down to the concrete below. Kevin's coming to visit, and he decides that he wants to be Babe Ruth and take a stick that he found and jack this thing for a 6 and hit a home run. Okay? And he hits this thing just before it crashes to the ground. Now, why is Kevin, the one who wielded the stick, not liable? I've almost given you the answer there.
Isn't it indirect?
No,
it's not indirect because he's doing it direct.
If you guys struggle, I'll answer. But
maybe the guy, has given up ownership of by throwing it off and thinking it's going to learn safely.
No, Arthur owns it. I threw it off without permission.
Okay.
You threw it off. Oh, without permission. Okay.
Can I put them out their misery?
Yeah, put them out their misery.
Okay, so from the time it leaves there, it was going to smash anywhere on the floor. So therefore, the guy, if he hit it, makes no difference. Because in the moment it was pushed out.
That's what I said.
No, you didn't say it like that. You said.
I also thought Kevin said it like that.
Yourself from this article hurting you.
I also said that as well. I said both. I also said as he threw it out, he thinks it's not going to break. It's going to break anyway. Then on concrete.
Then you got it. Yeah. Apologies. Then you got it. The second part of your statement confused Arthur and me. Because the second part of your statement said at the last second, you were onto a good wicket there, no pun intended, with your cricket bat, is that you said it was on its way down anyway. You were right. And then you said, but he wanted to get it out of the way of hitting him. So you were fine until that last statement. But what you said was initially correct. You said all you've done is broken a broken item. It was going to smash in the
Yeah,
concrete
correct.
anyway.
That was
So
lucky
I just had a lucky break here with what I said, Damon.
You just had a
I thought
lucky
you said
break.
that. I thought you said that. That's why yeah.
I
So
did say,
then-
Yeah,
No,
lucky
Kevin,
break.
he
Very good.
started, but it didn't end that way. That's why often I had to. All right.
No worries, man. Ain't bad.
So basically, what happens is we learned this in 17b. Remember when we learned about the chicken kicking a barrel? Does it break at the time that the chicken kicks the barrel or when it smashes against the wall? At what point does it break? Remember this whole discussion in 17b in the Gemara. We did this.
Yes,
Is it about concerning Soros as well?
Yes,
No.
that's exactly it. Yes, yes. It was the exact explanation on Soros, is that is Soros considered damage from the minute the animal kicks the item or when it lands and smashes? That's exactly it. For a utensil was legally considered broken from the moment it was thrown off the roof because it would inevitably break on impact. Therefore, one who later shattered it in midair with a stick has really done nothing to it, according to Rashi. So that's exactly it, guys. Let's go to the next case. Another ruling, this is a bit more hectic. And Rabbah said, one who is not the owner of the utensil. Okay, now this is something slightly different. And Rabbah also said, if one, in other words, the person who's not the owner of the utensil, threw a utensil off the top of the roof, and at the same time there were pillars and cushions beneath it on the ground below, and someone else came and removed them, or he himself removed them in advance of the utensil reaching the ground, he is not liable. So we've got a case as follows. Arthur comes and his Ming vase is broken and he wants to blame me and Kevin. Okay, and I say Kevin should pay for it, and Kevin says I should pay for it. Now Kevin, what he did is he was bored. So he took pillows and cushions from Arthur's couch because Arthur was running late, and he put them on the ground below. And what Kevin did is he knocked these vessels off to see how they would bounce and how they would be absorbed on the cushion. Now they were being absorbed on the cushion, and that's fine, except Damon the idiot decided to remove the cushions to see how they would crack. Now, Arthur comes home and he's not happy with his friends Damon and Arthur to say, what have you done here? And I said, it's Kevin's fault because Kevin actually pushed it off the balcony. And Kevin said, it's my fault because Damon the idiot removed the cushions. Whose fault is it? Kevin, whose fault is it?
Well, first of all, Arthur, this is the one that cracked.
Arthur is the one that cracked, yeah.
Whose fault is it? I got to think of it. No, it's if a person removed the cushions, then maybe it's. But he's got to having full knowledge. Yeah, he's got to. Maybe he thought. Yeah, that's it. I think.
Yes, it's not your fault, Kevin, because you made provisions below where the Gemara terms that your arrows being stopped. In other words, you made a way that it wouldn't crash. Me removing the cushions, I'm fully responsible, so I can't turn around and said it was smashed from the minute you threw it off the roof. It wasn't. It was going to be cushioned below. The floor was going to be cushioned below. So it's not your fault. It's my fault for removing the cushions. Does that make sense? And they were saying it's even the same if the actual person did it himself. Although unless he was Superman, I'm not sure how he did it. So when he did the act of throwing it, did not have the capacity to damage the utensil since there were cushions on the ground below, and therefore the person that removed the cushions is actually responsible. Why? Because it's merely causative, not direct. Meaning, all right, now this case is a little hectic, and Rabbah also said if one threw a child off a roof, off the top of a roof, and someone else came along and met the falling child with an upturned sword, the liability of wielding the sword is the subject of dispute between Rav Yehuda ben Basira and the rabbis. Now, who's to blame? The person that threw the child off the roof, or the person that met the child with the upturned sword?
Can I just add something into it? Possibly
Yeah, go
maybe
for
the
it.
person didn't think it was a child. Maybe thought it was an object. And they wouldn't have put a sword up even you knowing it was a child. Maybe. Possibility.
Got this.
So Damon, so the question was, why would the
Okay.
guy put a sword up if he was a child? Why would he did it? If he
No,
knew
no,
it was a child, he
listen,
would have done that.
imagine this in the times of Roman Nazi Germany. Okay. There was they did terrible things even in Nazi Germany where they used bayonets and all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah, sure.
They threw the child off the roof and somebody met the child with an upturned sword. Now, this is similar to the case below, that if there wasn't an upturned sword, there would have been concrete below. But here we're dealing with the issue of life and death, not of damages of inanimate objects and utensils.
Yes.
So who's responsible? The person with the upturned sword or the person for throwing the child off the roof?
Is there a fire in the apartment, and that's why he's throwing the child out to save the child?
No,
maybe they're both responsible.
No, this is a case of sheer murder, Kevin.
No, the guy threw the baby out of the roof. He's guilty 100%.
Okay.
How can you throw a baby out of a roof? How can you do that? It's obviously it's going to die.
Battery has fully charged.
It doesn't need the sword. The sword is just, dividing the situation. That's all it's doing. But it's the baby was dead at the moment it was thrown.
Okay. I agree with you. It is a discussion on the Gemara between obviously Rav Yehuda ben Basira and the rabbis. The rabbis agree with you. The rabbis do agree with you. Yeah.
Not often. Normally when I go to shul, they hardly ever agree with me. Yeah.
Then why did the guy put his sword up? What, to protect himself? What was the point of that?
Not at all. Rabbi, we're going to address as to why. Rabbi Yehuda ben Basira said it's the guy with the sword because it's the person that actually does the actual activity that is to blame. He's the one that actually caused the direct.
He's direct. The other guy's indirect.
Like completing the action.
Correct. So they're both right. It depends how you interpret the verse. Next time we're going to interpret the verses from Sanhedrin. It's all from Sanhedrin 78 and 79. I think this was before your time, Gavin, or you just joined this year.
Yeah. No, 78 sounds a bit early for me, I think.
All right. So listen, we'll do this next time.
Might have been just after that.
Yeah. And guys, it was lovely to see you all looking well.
Yeah, and yourself.
Yeah.
No, not your hand. Don't show us your hand. Just look at your upper part.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. I'll see you.
Cheers. Thanks, Damon. Thanks, guys. Arthur, you're also looking good. Kevin, have a nice day.
Hey, Gavin, you too, man.
Likewise. Guys, see you later. Cheers.
Yeah, bye.